What happens when a champion team starts looking more like a financial time bomb than a dynasty in the making? That's the uncomfortable question hanging over the Boston Celtics 2025 offseason, a franchise that just 12 months ago hoisted its 18th banner and looked poised to dominate the league for years to come. Now, they are paralyzed by uncertainty. The shocking Achilles tear suffered by Jayson Tatum in Game 4 against the Knicks didn't just end their playoff run. It may have signaled the abrupt end of a 2-year title window that Boston believed was just opening. But here's the deeper story nobody wants to say out loud. The Celtics may not just be facing a season without their superstar. They may be on the brink of tearing the whole thing down, and it's not because of basketball reasons. It's because of the money. With new owner Bill Chisholm preparing to take over the keys to the franchise, Boston faces a chilling reality. If they try to run it back with this roster, their combined payroll and luxury tax could cross the $500 million mark. For a team that isn't even guaranteed to make the conference finals next season, that price tag is simply unsustainable, even for a market as storied as Boston. At first glance, it looks like clever cap maneuvering, but if you look closer, it's a calculated risk with massive implications. Drew isn't just a veteran. He's the Celtics' defensive brain, the calm in chaos, the guy who defended Luka Doncic into submission. Trading him isn't like losing a piece. It's like yanking out the central processor and hoping the machine keeps running. Dallas, desperate to keep their championship window open while Kyrie rehabs from an ACL injury, is reportedly salivating at the idea of Holiday running the show. And Boston, they are betting that PJ Washington, young, versatile, and relatively cheap, can hold the line until Tatum returns. But will Celtics fans forgive Stevens if this move tanks the season? If you take Drew out, who's defending the guards of the East? Brunson just lit us up and we are gonna let that happen again. Celtics assistant, off record. Even more interesting, Washington is a pending free agent in 2026. If he walks, this could age very poorly, but if the real play is 2026 to 27, then moving Drew now might be the cold, cruel decision that keeps the Celtics solvent and quietly loads the chamber for a future reload. Let's be clear, this is less about basketball and more about math. Hauser has become a beloved piece of the Celtics puzzle. An undrafted gem who turned himself into a 42% three-point sniper and a floor-spacing machine. But the NBA's brutal new second apron rules don't care about narratives. They care about margins. Boston's calculus. Hauser is a luxury, not a necessity, and so he gets packaged to Portland, where he'll immediately become their best shooter and help unlock Scoot Henderson and Sheedon Sharp spacing issues. Boston, meanwhile, gets Stuart Reith, a 28-year-old center who barely played in Portland and won't move the needle. This isn't a trade for talent. It's a sacrifice at the altar of fiscal survival. But here's where it gets darker. This move, paired with a potential Holiday trade, signals something bigger. A surrender, a retreat, a white flag on 2025. You don't trade shooting and defense unless you're punting the year, period. Former NBA GM. And with Tatum sidelined, it's suddenly plausible that the Celtics are willing to go dark for a season, preserve cap flexibility, gather assets, and return in 2026 with a vengeance. What if the most devastating move of the summer for the Boston Celtics wasn't even made by them? That's the chilling reality fans and front office insiders are now confronting. Kevin Durant is headed to Houston in a deal that looked, at first glance, like standard star relocation. But beneath the surface, the shockwaves from that trade may have just collapsed one of Boston's most crucial escape routes and thrown the entire roster strategy into chaos. Let's make one thing crystal clear: the Celtics were not involved in the Durant deal, but they may be its biggest unintended victims, and the consequences could be massive. For weeks, Boston's front office had been quietly floating the possibility of offloading Drew Holiday or Kristaps Porzingis, not because they wanted to, but because the brutal financial reality of being nearly $23 million over the NBA's second tax apron left them cornered. The math simply didn't work. That team was Houston. The Rockets had everything Boston needed. They were the ideal Drew Holiday landing spot, a team that could absorb his contract without sending equal money back, and a roster ready to take a leap with a defensive leader and proven playoff performer. Houston was the pressure valve, the one logical destination where Boston could shed salary without sacrificing too much in return. NBA cap analyst, off record now. That door is closed, slammed shut, permanently. The Rockets didn't just acquire Kevin Durant, they chose a direction, a full-speed, all-in commitment to contention. And here's what nobody's saying: if they were still entertaining a deal for Drew Holiday, they wouldn't have done this now. Durant is entering the final year of his deal. Houston had to be thinking extension when they made this move, which means they are out of the Holiday sweepstakes completely. That's not speculation. That's roster math, and with Houston out, Boston's options for offloading its veteran contracts shrink dramatically. The market was already limited. Now it's basically non-existent. Former GM on Boston's trade flexibility. So where does that leave the Celtics? Let's talk Kristaps Porzingis. Yes, he's talented. Yes, he was impactful before injuries derailed his postseason. But he's also owed $30.7 million next season and is coming off yet another lower body setback. That's not exactly a seller's market, and Jrue Holiday, while still elite defensively, will be 35 next postseason and just signed an expensive extension. The pool of contenders that can absorb that kind of deal is microscopic. Houston was the outlier, and they just cashed out their flexibility to bring Durant to town. What's left? Not much. Let's address the elephant in the room. Some insiders whispered that if things got ugly enough, Boston might quietly shop Jaylen Brown, their All-NBA wing, locked into a supermax deal that's about to balloon past $60 million per year. And Houston, they were one of the very few franchises with both the assets and cap space to make a play for him. But the Durant trade wasn't just about this offseason. It was Houston choosing Durant over Brown. That matters. Here's the part that should terrify Boston's front office the most. Phoenix gave up Kevin Durant and only got one first-round pick in return. That's not just a devaluation of Durant. That's a signal from around the league. The blockbuster trade bubble might be bursting. Executives are growing wary of the kinds of overpays we saw for Rudy Gobert or Bradley Beal. They are no longer willing to get their futures for aging stars. With massive contracts, this could be the summer everything recalibrates. Teams are scared of overpaying for names that won't deliver in May and June. Eastern Conference executive, and that's a nightmare for a team like Boston, because if the market cools and the Celtics are stuck holding expensive veterans with limited suitors, their ability to reshape the roster or cut salary implodes. What if Boston's next title shot depends on giving up the very piece that once seemed destined to complete their championship puzzle? That's the shocking scenario beginning to take shape behind closed doors at the Auerbach Center. While the focus has been on Jrue Holiday or Derek White as trade candidates, a darker and far more polarizing possibility is gaining traction: trading Kristaps Porzingis. Yes, the 7 feet 3 inches stretch 5 unicorn who altered the Celtics' identity and helped bring Banner 18 home just a year ago could now be the first domino to fall in a brutal salary purge. And the team making the strongest move to take advantage of Boston's cap panic, the Detroit Pistons. This isn't just about fit or potential anymore. This is survival. The Celtics are drowning under the weight of the NBA's new second apron, and the harsh truth is that Porzingis, more than anyone else, may be the sacrificial lamb needed to keep the dynasty alive. But could shipping KP to a rebuilding Pistons team actually save both franchises? Let's dive into the chaos. The Celtics aren't tweaking the roster this summer, they are fighting for their financial lives. With Tatum's supermax kicking in, Jaylen Brown already making north of $50 million per year, and Jrue Holiday locked into a lucrative extension, Boston is now over $23 million past the second apron, and Porzingis, he's owed $30.7 million next season, with a player option looming that could keep his price tag above $36 million the following year. That's a nightmare, especially for a 29-year-old big with a long injury history, fresh off missing the playoffs. Again, due to lower body issues, the contract made sense when they were hunting for a second title. Now that Tatum's down and the market's shifting, it looks like a luxury they can't afford. Anonymous league executive. So the Celtics may have to ask themselves, do we want to pay $500 million to be a 6th seed without Tatum? Or do we cash in KP now, while he still has value, and live to fight in 2026? The Pistons aren't the same laughable squad that's been picking in the lottery for what feels like a decade. They just posted a 44-38 season, earned the 6th seed in the East, and gave the Knicks all they could handle in a 6-game war. At the heart of their resurgence, Cade Cunningham. Is no longer promising. He's legit, averaging 26.1 points, 9.1 assists, and 6.1 rebounds while commanding the floor like a 10-year vet. But Cade needs help. Real help. Playoff help. Add in Malik Beasley's 40% shooting and you have a team no defense can scheme against. This is what the modern Pistons look like: a gritty, fast, physical, but with skill and spacing they've never had before. Eastern Conference scout Detroit needs a veteran with playoff scars. They need someone who's been there. Porzingis, when healthy, is a matchup nightmare, a top 20 impact player, and a proven second option in a title system for a team ready to leap out of scrappy and into dangerous. He's the spark. On paper, he's exactly what Boston needs. Rim protection, stretch offense, matchup manipulation, but the reality, he's a ticking clock. And the Celtics no longer have the time or the cap space to wait and see. This isn't about performance. It's about preservation, and the irony: if Boston trades Porzingis to save its future, they might have to watch him lead another team to theirs.